I don't believe we directly covered this, but Abrego Garcia is back in U.S. custody. A few months ago, he was arrested and disappeared to CCOT. Now, at the time of his detainment, arrest, and deportation, he was here on he had a legal status granted to him. He had a legal work authorization that granted him the right to live and work here. Now, that came from court cases prior, and that was the end result. So, like 90% of the people who ended up being swept away and sent to CCOT, he did not have a criminal record. He was not even being charged of any crime. He was alleged of being a terrorist. Now, what was the evidence for that? They ended up, when they didn't have any evidence, they ended up taking his knuckles, like a picture of the tattoos on his knuckles, and they photoshopped MS-13 on them, which, okay, we're not going to get into that. We've gotten into it many times. But essentially, he was disappeared and sent to a slave labor camp for nothing. And he, after months of legal battle and lots of public pressure, he was brought back. Now that he is back in the U.S., they are attempting to charge him with human trafficking, I think it is, and that's in relation to a traffic stop in 2022. I think it was by like Tennessee Highway Patrol. He was the driver of a car, and he was transporting like 6 or so other people, and after a little bit of back and forth, the cops step away, and the one cop's like, you know what we got here, right? Human trafficking. And that's where this all stemmed from. So in the description below, we covered this before. We went over that full body cam footage video, and you can do the same and make your own conclusion. But here is what I think the most reasonable interpretation from that is, based on the facts that we know. So it's confirmed that Abrego Garcia was working for a construction company. In fact, he was confirmed he was even in a union. He was a union member. And so in this, he can be seen hauling several people in his boss's car, because they're asking him a bunch of questions about the car. And he's like, I don't really know. This is my boss's car. Presumably the owner of the construction company or his manager or whatever. And this is very common in the construction industry, carpooling, all right? Because you're normally traveling hundreds of miles away, in this case across state lines, to go to different jobs. So people do this thing called carpooling. And he even called his boss and put him on speakerphone, like, because they kept asking questions about the car that he couldn't answer. He's like, let me call my boss. And he called his boss, he put him on speakerphone, and yeah, like, is this like, I could not figure out where we were getting this human trafficking from just aside from utter fucking racism. Like, I hate pulling that card, but just watch the video. A lot of it stemmed from people saying that, oh, he changed his story several times in the video. Now, it's been a while since I watched it, so I don't recall exactly what this story change was, but I really did not see it or pick up on it. If anything, you can see that there was definitely 100% a language barrier. And if you ever talk to someone who their native language isn't English and they don't speak very fluent English, I don't speak that either, apparently. You can tell that there's a lot of like kind of circles you run in the conversation, and there is a language barrier. And I get it. It's America. Speak English, bro. Whatever. Okay. You know what? I'll meet you in the middle of that. How about, as a part of immigrants' conditions for them to be here legally, they have to take weekly government-sponsored English courses or something like that for X amount of time. Okay, I'll meet you there. Anyways, I digress. Side point. It wouldn't cost you anything anyways, like a couple $1,000,000. That's like 0.00001% of our, federal budget. I digress. So, again, link in the description below if you want to check that out and make your own conclusion. But here's the story. Judge will order Kilmar Abrego Garcia's release before trial, but ICE plans to detain him. What the fuck does that even mean? I mean, we already know that ICE is waiting outside of courthouses and in courthouses, immigrant courthouses, and as soon as they have their case heard by a judge, they're immediately snatched the second they leave the courtroom and then disappeared and deported. Like, I don't know what I obviously he's in U.S. custody. I don't know. I thought he'd be in ICE custody, but since we're actually formally charging him now, with something, which it's going to go nowhere. Let's be clear. This is the most like easy, open and shut case I've ever seen. Because the only thing they have was literally just one remark from some fucking Tennessee pig highway patrolman. There were not even charges put against him then. I'm pretty sure during that they called ICE or the Department of Homeland Security and was like, hey, this guy's on a watch list because of the past cases against him, and not because of his past or anything he's actually done, but because of cases that were brought against him, which led to his legal authorization to be here. I even, like, Department of Homeland Security's like, yeah, like, let him go. Like, it's fine. Like, easy, like, just open, shut, close. But this is weird. So, a federal judge in Tennessee plans to order the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, whose mistaken deportation to El Salvador has become a flashpoint in President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown, while he awaits a federal trial on human smuggling charges. But Abrego Garcia is not expected to go free because U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement will likely take him into custody and possibly try to deport him. And it gets more insane. In a ruling on Sunday, U.S. Magistrate Judge Barbara Holmes denied the U.S. government's motion to keep Abrego Garcia in detention before his trial. She scheduled a hearing for Wednesday to discuss the conditions of his release. By the way, this is a dude who's married and has kids and is a full-time worker in a fucking union. Like, this is... You couldn't make a better case for, like, the immigrant you want. You know, come here, work full time, join a union, start a family, have kids. I digress. The U.S. government has already filed a motion to appeal the judge's decision and is asking the judge to stay her impeding release order. Abrego Garcia pleaded not guilty on June 13th to smuggling charges that his attorneys have characterized as an attempt to justify his mistaken deportation in March. Exactly that, to a notorious prison in El Salvador. After the fact, the hearing was the first chance the Maryland construction worker had in a U.S. courtroom to answer the Trump administration's allegations. Because as we discussed in the beginning of the video, he was swept up and deported to CCOT with no due process, no chance to plead his case, just, because they said he's a terrorist. And remember, there were two studies on this. One said at least 75%, and another said at least 90% of the people sent there don't have any criminal record. It's all allegations. We've heard the stories of people with, tattoos that they didn't like, even though it's like a tribute to their, like, autistic brother or a tribute to their mother or father. Like, insane. I can't believe what's happening. The smuggling charges stem from a 2022 traffic stop for speeding in Tennessee, during which Abrego Garcia was driving a vehicle with 9 passengers. I misspoke in the beginning. Although officers suspected it's possible smuggling, he was allowed to go on his way with only a warning, and I assume that was like for speeding or some shit. And cue all the comments, be like, he was speeding, get him out of here, get him out, send him to CCOT. A federal indictment accuses Abrego Garcia of smuggling throughout the U.S. hundreds of people living in the country illegally, including children and members of the violent MS-13 gang. The investigation was launched weeks after the Supreme Court ordered the administration to facilitate his return from El Salvador amid mounting public pressure. Think about how much tax dollars are being spent just trying to fucking just stick it to this man and either send him to a slave labor camp. And what we're going to talk about, I think this article touches on it, or what they call a third country, like Libya or fucking some shit like that. Like, when this guy, they can't find anything to actually charge him with successfully. It's just a dude who is a construction worker, who has a wife, who has kids, who's in a fucking union. Like, and we're spending probably, with all the legal cases on this and just all of the investigations they've opened up to try to find something to justify their reason for deporting him, Just imagine the millions of your tax dollars that they always LARP and on about waste. Imagine how much is being wasted here when it could be spent on going after actual fucking criminals. Overall, the court cannot find from the evidence presented that Abrego's release clearly and convincingly poses an immediable danger to other persons or the community. The judge wrote. The acting U.S. attorney for the Middle District of Tennessee, Rob McGuire, argued on June 13th that the likely attempt by ICE to try to deport him was one reason to keep him in jail. The judge suggested that the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security could work out between themselves whether the government's priority is to try him on criminal charges or deport him. No date has been set for the trial. A 2019 immigration judge order prevents Abrego Garcia from being deported to his native El Salvador because he faces a credible threat from gangs there, according to Will Allensworth, an assistant federal public defender representing Abrego Garcia. The government could deport him to a third country, but immigration officials would first be required to show that the third country was willing to keep him, not simply deport him back to El Salvador. So it's like, yeah, you better keep him in your fucking... I don't want to say shithole country. I think people get mad when I say that. But in your very not good country right now in terms of just stability and violence and terrorism and just treatment of prisoners, Libya, let's send him there. Just make sure you don't send him back to El Salvador, but you just need to make sure he stays in Libya. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? How can you justify this, like, as just doing to another human being who they can't find any actual case on? They just keep pulling more and more shit out of their asses. God. At the detention hearing, McGuire said cooperating witnesses have accused Abrego Garcia of trafficking drugs and firearms and of abusing the woman he transported, among other claims. Although he is not charged with such crimes, McGuire said they showed Abrego Garcia to be a dangerous person who should remain in jail pre-trial. Most people in ICE custody who are facing criminal charges are not kept in the U.S. for trial, but deported, according to Ohio State University law professor Cesar... Sorry, Garcia Hernandez. I can't pronounce all that, buddy. The government would not need a conviction to deport Abrego Garcia because he came to the U.S. illegally. However, an immigration judge rules the decision can be appealed by the Board of Immigration Appeals, Garcia Hernandez said, and the board ruling can then be contested in a federal appeals court. Yeah, so that's where we are currently at. If anything else changes on this story, we will, of course, cover it. And I imagine this, it was a whole fight to get him back to the U.S., and it's going to be a whole nother fight to just keep him here. If you wanna actually put him on trial and bring him to court for all of your fucking bullshit claims, and so be it, because you're gonna lose. But we'll see. They might just find some other reason to deport him, and yeah, the fight is just beginning. We're barely even started yet. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next one. If you made it to this point in the video, I just want to give a special thank you. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button down below, and if you really enjoyed it, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button while you're down there. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I will try to reply to any and all comments that I can. Until next time, watch that video on screen.